The chandelier above flickered as if mocking him, sparkling like the glittering lies this marriage was built on. Taehyung stood in front of the grand mirror, fixing the cuff of his custom tuxedo with steady fingers, though everything inside him churned. His mother's voice echoed in his ears. "You'll marry Jungkook. You don't need to love him. You just need to control him." Love? That wasn't part of the contract. Jungkook, the innocent, golden-hearted boy from their rival family, was nothing but a strategic move. A pawn. A sweet-faced chess piece to weaken the Jian Empire from within. And yet, when Taehyung walked down the stairs and saw him waiting by the altar, he froze. Dressed in soft ivory, eyes lowered, Jungkook looked like he didn't belong in this world of manipulation and greed. His delicate fingers were clasped together nervously, his lips trembling slightly. And that's when it hit Taehyung. The boy didn't even know the truth. He thought this marriage was real. That it meant something. Taehyung's chest tightened, not out of guilt. He wasn't allowed to feel guilt. He approached, offering his hand. Jungkook looked up with those wide eyes and placed his hand in Taehyung's like it was something sacred. "You're beautiful," Jungkook whispered, his voice like sunlight slipping through cold stone. Taehyung didn't respond. He couldn't. Because for the first time, he wished he wasn't the villain in this story. The mansion was beautiful, but it felt cold. Not the kind of cold that made your skin shiver. The kind that wrapped around your heart and whispered you don't belong here. Jungkook stepped into the grand hallway, the heavy oak door closing behind him like a final verdict. His luggage was already brought in by silent staff, but Taehyung hadn't said a word since the ceremony. He'd walked ahead, not once looking back. This was how Jungkook imagined his first day as a newlywed. "This way, your room," Taehyung finally said, pushing open a door on the far side of the hall. "Your room. Not our room." Jungkook's fingers tightened on the handle of his small bag. He stared into the empty, sterile bedroom, pristine, elegant, and completely impersonal. "Oh," he tried to smile. "I thought maybe I don't mind staying in the same room if that's unnecessary." Taehyung cut him off, voice clipped. "This is a marriage of convenience. Nothing more." His words hit like glass shattering inside Jungkook's chest. "Oh," he whispered, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Okay. I understand," but he didn't. Not really. Just a few weeks ago, when Taehyung had visited his house, cold and unreadable in his tailor suit, Jungkook had fallen harder than he wanted to admit. Something about the loneliness in his eyes made Jungkook want to reach in and warm it. But now, that same loneliness was pushing him away. Still, Jungkook was never one to give up easily. Especially not when his heart was involved. "I'll be a good husband," he said softly. "Even if it's just convenience for you." Taehyung paused. For a second, his eyes flickered, something unreadable flashing across them. But then, he turned and walked away. Jungkook stood there alone, in the middle of a mansion that felt more like a museum. A beautiful bird trapped in a golden cage. But he made a silent promise to himself. "I'll find out why he's like this. And maybe I'll make him fall for me." He wasn't supposed to look back. That was the rule he'd set for himself the moment they signed the marriage documents. Don't look back. Don't get involved. Don't feel anything. But then came that voice again, soft, unsure, hopeful. "I'll be a good husband, even if it's just convenience for you." Taehyung clenched his jaw. He hated how it lingered in his ears. He locked himself in his study, the only Roman touched by his family's greed, and poured himself a glass of whiskey. The burn in his throat was nothing compared to the one creeping into his chest. Jungkook was supposed to be a tool, a means to weaken the giants, a stepping stone. So why did his eyes look like they'd shatter if Taehyung stepped on them? Dinner was silent. A long table stretched between them like a battlefield, Taehyung at one end, expression unreadable, and Jungkook at the other, picking at food he couldn't taste. Jungkook tried to speak once. Taehyung ignored him. He tried again. Taehyung stood up and left. So Jungkook wandered the halls alone. The mansion was endless, full of art and silence. But then he turned a corner, and heard something. A voice. Deep. Quiet. Pained. He stepped closer. Through a barely ajar door, he saw Taehyung, not in a suit, not guarded, but in a hoodie, sitting on the floor beside a large bookshelf. A photo frame was in his hand. You ruined everything, Taehyung whispered to the picture. And now I have to clean it up, like always. Jungkook's breath caught. He shouldn't have walked away. He meant to. But the image of the cold man now hunched over, grieving something unseen, it froze him. Taehyung suddenly looked up, eyes locking directly with Jungkook's. Time stopped. Taehyung stood slowly, his voice low and dangerous now. How much did you hear? Nothing, Jungkook lied, panicked. I just got lost. Taehyung stepped forward. One hand on the door frame. Jungkook took a step back. The air between them buzzed with tension. You're curious, Taehyung said, eyes scanning him. I'm not. I mean, I didn't mean to pry. You're trying to understand me. Jungkook blinked. Is that such a bad thing? Taehyung stared at him. For a second, just a second, something softened in his gaze. Yes, he whispered. Because once you do, you'll hate me. He shut the door. And Jungkook was left in the hallway, heart pounding, more confused than ever. But one thing was clear now, Taehyung wasn't just cold. He was broken. And Jungkook was starting to want to piece him back together. The rain wouldn't stop. It tapped against the tall windows of the mansion like a quiet warning. Or maybe a confession. Jungkook sat curled up on the edge of the couch in the vast living room, a blanket wrapped around him, a forgotten cup of tea cooling in his hands. It had been weeks since the wedding. Weeks of silence. Of cold stares. Of doorways that always closed just before he could speak. But now, Taehyung was home early. Jungkook had heard the car. He didn't mean to wait for him, but somehow, his heart always noticed the sound of that black car pulling into the driveway. The door opened. Taehyung stepped inside, drenched, hair falling across his forehead, suit jacket slung over his shoulder. You're soaked, Jungkook said quietly, standing up, clutching the blanket around him. Didn't bring an umbrella. Taehyung looked at him, long and unreadable. His eyes were tired. I forgot. Jungkook hesitated, then took a few careful steps toward him. And then, without thinking, he reached up with the edge of the blanket and gently patted Taehyung's hair dry. Taehyung stiffened. Jungkook froze. Sorry, he whispered, heart pounding. You'll catch a cold. For a long second, neither of them moved. Taehyung slowly reached up, and took Jungkook's hand in his. His touch wasn't rough. It wasn't angry. It was cautious. Almost reverent. He looked down at their joined hands. You always do this, he murmured. Act like I deserve kindness, Jungkook blinked. Maybe you do, Taehyung let out a breath, sharp and quiet, like something inside him cracked. And then he dropped Jungkook's hand and stepped back. Don't try to fix me, Jungkook. I'm not someone you can save. I'm not trying to fix you, Jungkook said softly. I'm just here. Taehyung paused in the doorway. That's the problem. He left again. But this time, Jungkook didn't feel defeated. Because for the first time, Taehyung didn't shut the door all the way. The dining hall was full, not with warmth or laughter, but with power. The Kim elders sat in a line, sharp eyes watching everything, waiting for cracks in Taehyung's armor. Jungkook had been told to stay quiet. Smile politely. Be ornamental. But when one of the older men turned to him with a tight smile, he should have known it was a setup. So, Jungkook, Chairman Kim said, sipping wine. Tell me, are you just as obedient in private as you appear in public? Laughter broke across the table. Ugly. Condescending. Jungkook's spine stiffened. His cheeks flushed, not with shame, but humiliation. He glanced at Taehyung across the table, who hadn't reacted, his face unreadable, hands resting calmly on the tablecloth. But Jungkook saw it. The tension in Taehyung's jaw. The slight tremble in his finger. The way his wine glass stopped an inch before reaching his lips. So Jungkook made a choice. He straightened his shoulders. Looked the chairman in the eye. Respectfully, sir, he said calmly, I wasn't aware I married into a family that finds amusement in mocking their own. Silence fell like thunder. The air changed. Heavy. Sharp. Someone at the far end coughed to break the tension, but Jungkook didn't look away. Neither did Taehyung. Their eyes met across the table, and for once, Taehyung wasn't guarded. He wasn't cold. He was stunned. Like Jungkook had just become a different person in front of him. The chairman scoffed. Fiery little thing, aren't you? Jungkook smiled, soft but firm. Only when someone tries to make me small. The meeting ended early. Back in the car, Taehyung didn't speak for a while. He kept his eyes on the window, the city lights bleeding into streaks of golden gray. Jungkook sat beside him, fingers curled in his lap, probably thinking he'd crossed a line. He hadn't. He'd redrawn it. You surprised me today, Taehyung finally said. Sorry if I embarrassed you. Taehyung turned to him, voice low. You didn't, then. What did I do? Taehyung stared for a moment. Then leaned in, slowly, until their faces were just inches apart. You reminded me I'm not the only one who can protect someone. Jungkook's breath caught. Taehyung didn't kiss him. Didn't touch him. But the look in his eyes. Jungkook felt it everywhere.